Hello, my name's Mitch James, owner of Action Well and Pump. I want to talk to you today about a unit that we install for iron. This iron unit behind me is a popular unit we install. The biggest problem we have around that I get the most questions and have to talk to people about is the staining that's going on in their house. Whether it's orange, red, black staining, usually you can see these remnants of the stain in your toilets. Especially if you lift up the back of your toilets where you normally don't look, where the mechanics are. That kind of shows you what's growing in the pipes in your house. A lot of people I have to convince that it's not mud. They've been told and they've read that it's mud. A lot of times they get to thinking it's mud because their test does not show that they have a lot of iron in their wells, so in their water, so they contribute it to mud. But mud, your older wells from your 1960s, 70s, there was a such thing as you can get a little surface water in those wells if they wasn't drilled properly. That's a whole different experience of the staining. What happens at that point is when it rains hard or you have a thunderstorm, you might notice your water turn a little dingy, get discolored, and then it comes back to clear. You don't deal with all the staining like I'm talking about. If you're having that issue, you can call us and talk to us about that, but that's a totally separate issue. So if you're having the staining, living with it all the time, the mud, some people complain about their clothes or whites turning dingy. I've had people complain about their hair. It's just tile joints are starting to turn. That's iron in our water, and we have a lot. Probably 90% of my customers have some form of iron, and I'll explain to you why you have iron and what happens and why it gets worse a lot of times. So if you have any history on your house at all, some people have a simple cartridge filter, or you might have a water softener. Cartridge filters, you'll start seeing those turn, they're white. Usually when you put them in, they'll turn a black or an orange. And if it's starting to get worse as the house gets older, that's normal. And I'll explain here in a minute why that happens. And people get tired of changing those. And you're not stopping the iron. You're just kind of stopping the sludge a little bit of the iron. That's why it's still turning in the toilet. So, once a house gets to a certain age, it's time to get off a cartridge filter. And a lot of houses should have not even had a cartridge filter to begin with. But you don't have to live with that staining in your house. There's definitely a tool for that. This is my own personal house, and this is a great unit that we install. We install a lot of them. We have no problems with these units, and they're 100% effective, and you will never see a stain in your house again. Just to tell you a little bit about the unit, the iron filtration unit, this is an iron filter, not a water softener. So a true iron filter does aeration. So aeration, this unit does every night. And once every 6 days, it does a full backwash, and that's for the stagnated iron that it's caught. That is set on different levels depending on what we determine. We could do it every 5 days, 4 days, but normally it's every 6 days unless you've really got a bad case. But the aeration is important. Aeration on a unit is key. That makes a true iron filter. So just to give you an example, you can put different filters in a row. You can have a water softener, cartridge filters, sand media filter. But unless it's aerating, you're not dissolving the particle iron out of the water. That's so like if you was to go out of town for a week and your water is in your toilet, it's still going to turn back dingy, stainy, because you didn't take the particle iron out of the water. So the aeration oxidation is an important part of a true iron system. And this one does the most parts per million of iron of any unit on the market. And the reason we get that unit, we put in this unit, is because we know that your well is not going to get better. It's going to get worse through the years. So it's essential to have a system in there that's going to last you now and for many, many years to come. Like I said, this is forever media in this. We used to have to take the media out every 8, 6, 10 years and rebed them. We don't have to do that anymore. So the technology has come a long ways. This unit's also Bluetooth. So we'll get into that here in a minute, and I'll tell you about that. But a lot of people are liking that. So just to give you an idea of what happens, as a well gets older, and we're demanding more water in today's times. Our wells are getting deeper, and we're hitting more water. So we're hitting 5 to 100 gallons a minute plus, and that's your amount of water coming into your well. And our average well now is 200 to 300 foot deep. and we got capabilities of drilling over 1,000 foot. So as your well gets deeper and we're hitting more water, you're a sitting form of water in the well, a column of water. That water adheres to itself. The iron, it's like algae in a swimming pool. Iron, it grows to itself and it keeps accumulating year after year. And that's why it gets worse and worse as the years go on. If you have any history with the house, you'll see that. And like I said, sometimes where people get lost in this is they'll test the water. We got the latest computerized lab, and it might show very low iron in your well. And that's why people think it's mud, because it's saying, the tests don't show that I have very little iron. Where people get lost in this is the years have caught up with the well. So now you've got the year growth into consideration. So the slightest part per million of iron growth on a test, add 40 years to that, and you've got a tremendous problem. So it happens to all wells, and that's where wells and filtration companies, and they get lost in not knowing what's going on. Us being a well business and a filtration company, I've run thousands of cameras in wells, third generation. I've grew up doing this. Now I've got over 30 years of experience. We know what's happening, and we know how to fix the problem. So most of my customers, when I get to their house, I say, how's your water quality? They say, I got this water softener. It does the job. It does all right. And I go in there and look at their toilet, and they're just staining everywhere. And they don't know, they don't think there's anything else they can do. They got sold a water softener, and now they're putting them in every 6 to 8 years. And I explain to them, the reason you're having to do that, spend your life savings putting these units in, is because your iron's growing in the well, and nobody's fixed your problem right yet. And because your iron keeps growing and keep magnifying, the water softener that you have now, most of them is only designed to do no more than 1 part per million of iron. Even though the tests come back less than that, your age is caught up with you now. So you're gumming up your water softeners. Now, if you do, and most people get a water softener put in, and they don't even have hard water. And, whether you have hard water or not, that's to be determined on the test. But we do know when you have iron, because you can see iron. Hard water is the white calcium buildup that you might see on your shower doors or on your shower heads or when you wash your car. If you've got hard enough water, you're going to know you got hard water, and maybe you do need a water softener. But if that's the case and you have iron, you've got to get that iron out first. Getting the iron out first before it goes to the water softener is essential. And if I had to make a choice, it's always going to be the iron filter, because that's what gums up stuff in the house. Your washing machines, dishwashers, everything nowadays is so sensitive, computerized driven. Any little bit that gets in there can clog them up. So the investment for paying for an iron filter is going to save you money in the future for saving your house. It's your water. It's important. Get it right. It's the most important thing to your house when it comes down to it. Another thing this particular iron filter does and system, it raises your pH. Most time we test people's water, you're around a 6. 6.5 is our normal pH. Sometimes we'll run into somebody that's got a 7 already. But it raises the pH a point. So a lot of times getting that pH up has nothing to do with the iron, but it raises your pH to keep your acidity right. So you're trying to get to a 7, which is neutral. So back when houses was plumbed with copper, you would see the copper would deteriorate on well water because we had some people were acidic below a 7. Greenish blue stains, that reverses that, getting that up to a 7. The problem we're running into now, they say, well, my house is PEX, I'm not worried about that. Well, the problem we're seeing now is all the PEX piping, when they use the brass fittings to plumb with, they're not true brass anymore. They're pot metal. So after, depending on what your pH is, we're finding out about 10, 15 years, we're going under houses, moving a pipe, and they're snapping like toothpicks. So that's a big problem we're running into. So with one unit, you get the iron completely gone. You don't have to worry about the iron anymore, no staining, and you raise your pH. So basically it does those two things, and it's our go-to unit. And like I said, most people have the iron problem. It's not mud. I know you read a lot of stuff, pull your pump up, get it out of the mud. You move that pump, you're going to have a tremendous problem because you're going to get into an area that hadn't pumped before. All this is growing in your well. Like I said, your pump hangs down in your well. Your water rises in your well, average well being 200 or 300 foot deep. When that water rose the day it was drilled, on a lot of people that make a lot of water, more than 5 gallons a minute, don't have to be a lot of water, because your average spigot in the house can only do 2, and your outside spigots can do 5. So once the day that water rose to the top of that well, which are static water levels, generally around 20 to 50 foot, you've never pulled it back down. So think about that for a minute. All that water up here, you're only using a third of your well down here. All that water that rose, and that falls back to the new technology, the deeper the well, the more gallons a minute. It's kind of a curse when you hit more water. That water rose up there that day, and every year that goes by, it doesn't get pulled back down, because most pumps are only 10 gallon a minute pumps, and most spigots can only use 2 gallons a minute. So therefore what happens is the minerals that are in the water start adhering to the well walls or anything else that's on pipes, and that adherence grows year after year. And that all depends on your parts per million in your water, is how fast that is. Out of all the wells I've worked on through the years, I can probably say I've never seen not one well not have a little bit of iron in it. So as a well gets older, and 90% of them get to the point to where you can't use them, and you're using the cartridge filters and they're aggravating you, and you're having to throw them out every week, month, whatever. And see, that's not stopping it. You're seeing the results of the iron. You cannot see iron in the water. Iron in the water is clear. You can only see iron when it sits, and here you're only seeing the sludge of the iron. So when the pump's disturbing the well, bringing in the iron, that's what you're seeing on that cartridge filter. And that's where a water softener gets gummed up, is the stagnated iron. So the stagnated iron is where it's hurting everything, and that's what you're trying to stop. So with the aeration, the stagnated growth that's already accumulated in the house, the aeration does, it works its way through the lines. So when it aerates every night, the millions of aeration oxidation that works through the lines will actually dissolve the year's worth of growth of iron that is in your pipes and toilet already. So it's an aeration moving through the lines. I kind of give people the example, if you had a cut, you add peroxide to it, it bubbles up and kills the bacteria. Well, the aeration pretty much does the same thing with the iron. As it bubbles in there, it's killing the iron that's in your pipe. So it's getting your house back to the way it was when it was new. So this system here, 9-to-1, I sell iron filter to a water softener. And we put in water softeners too. And like I said, in some rare occasions, you only need a water softener. But around here, we have a lot of iron. And you already know if you have iron, because like I said, you think it's mud or you're staining, and you already know you have iron. So this is the #1 unit we do. And the Bluetooth part of it, like I said, it's very neat. You can tell if you have any leaks. You download an app. If you've got a leak under the house and it's leaking, it will tell you. You got a split in the pipe, it will tell you, and it gives you a monitor history chart of your usage of your water, which is interesting, how many gallons of water used a day, a week, a month. But the leak detector on it is real essential as we get older, or some houses are tight and you don't want to go under them, and you're laying in bed and you think you have a leak. You don't have to get up. You can look at your app. Maybe it is. Maybe it's the wind blowing outside. So that's a neat little tool. Another aspect we do, this is, like I said, this is my personal home. I've got grit. That's a grit tank. That's a tank we invented. So if you have grit's a whole different species of what I'm talking about. It's fine. If you lift up fine powdery, looks like little granite rocks. It looks like pepper. If you lift up the back of your toilets or in your filter cartridges, if it settles in the bottom, that's grit. This is a grit tank. We also install those. That's essential to keep out of the house also. Grit's pretty bad on the house, can cut washers, and it's solid. So the neat thing about that, it's not computerized. It's basically a lifetime product, because what it does, it comes in and it spins all this heaviness to the bottom, and then the clear goes out the top, and then once a year, only a year, you have to, because this thing's that big, you turn that on and you blow all the grit out of your tank. So a lot of times this would be under the house. We would plumb the valve to the door where you don't have to get into the house, turn that on. So that's the grit tank part of it. There's a sister product that we like to use. I talked about all that in the well, sludge in the well. This unit will take it out. Any parts of iron parts per million. It's the largest unit parts per million that they make. So that's why I buy that unit, because the well is going to get worse. So there's a sulfur eliminator we invented. That goes on top of the well. It's to rid the sulfur smell. A lot of people have the smelly water. But what we found out, by running aeration and misting down in the well, all the growth that I sit here and talked about, you're moving it. So if you, along with the sulfur eliminator, is a good product if you want to go that extra mile and say, hey, I don't even like the idea of that growth being in my well, even though this will handle it. I'd like to be able to get it out. Sulfur eliminator will get that sludge out. You can look at that website. It's www.wellwaterstinks.com. Our Action Well and Pump is www.actionwellandpump.com. And we have two main numbers, and we have more numbers on the website for your area. But our two main numbers is 336-685-0712 or 919-545-0155. And if you have any questions, you can call us at either one of those numbers, talk to our staff, talk to me. We can come out there with our computerized test, tell you exactly what we need, let our years of experience work for you. There's a lot of people out there putting in filtration equipment that's not quite doing it right, and this stuff, it can cost some money, and you want to do it right the first time, and get your water right, and you don't have to worry about it anymore, and invest into that water and get the quality of that water right and coming into your house. And we look forward to meeting you. And just call us if you have any questions. Thank you.